I was a billionaire heiress of the Vance family in New York 10 years ago. Against all objections, I married Carter Miller, a penniless estate security guard. After our wedding, he treated me like a queen. He even carried warm water to the bedside every night just to wash my feet. The Manhattan socialites who used to mock me for being blind ended up burning with jealousy, wishing they had married such a perfect man. Unfortunately, my health was always fragile, and I died of illness at the age of 30. After my death, my soul couldn't bear to leave him, so I hovered by his side. But I never expected what would happen the very next day after my funeral. My perfect husband, who had been crying his eyes out by my deathbed, couldn't wait to marry 4 women at once. Only then did I realize that his 10 years of pampering me were nothing but a patient act to steal my family's fortune. Even my declining health was all thanks to the healthy skin serum he applied to my neck every single night. Watching them divide my billions in front of my funeral portrait, a surge of pure rage hit my soul. I gasped and my eyes snapped open. I was alive again. With trembling hands, I grabbed the phone from the nightstand and lit up the screen. The date displayed on the screen was 10 years ago. I had traveled back in time. I was back to the days before I married that trash Carter Miller. Just then, there was a knock on the bedroom door. Maria, our housekeeper, called out from outside. "Miss Aurelia, are you awake?" "Mr. Miller is downstairs. He's causing quite a scene, saying he needs to see you urgently." "Mr. Miller." Carter Miller. The warmth in my eyes vanished instantly. "I got it. Tell him to wait." I turned around, walked into my walk-in closet, and leisurely picked out a silk slip dress. Then I spent my time applying a cold, sharp makeup look. After dragging my feet for over an hour, I finally stepped into my heels and walked out of the bedroom. Descending the spiral staircase, I saw Carter sitting on the velvet sofa. Hearing the click of my heels, Carter looked up abruptly. When he saw me coming down, a flash of awe crossed his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by impatience. "What took you so long?" Carter stood up, complaining to me with zero respect. "I've been waiting for you for over an hour, Aurelia." Hearing his whining tone made me want to throw up. In my past life, he had used this exact persona. "I may be poor, but I don't care about your money, and I'm not afraid of you to make me fall head over heels for him." I didn't run up to hug him like I used to. Instead, I crossed my arms and looked down at him coldly. "What do you want?" Carter choked on my icy attitude. His arrogant demeanor weakened a bit, but he quickly put on a show of having his pride wounded. "Aurelia, did you pay my mother's $300,000 hospital bill behind my back?" Carter looked as if he had suffered a great humiliation. "How many times do I have to tell you? I will earn the money to treat my mother myself. I don't need your charity." Watching his righteous performance, I sneered inwardly. In my past life, when I heard this, I would immediately apologize to him, telling him I only did it because it broke my heart to see him working 3 part-time jobs after his guard shifts to protect his fragile, ridiculous ego. I had even secretly upgraded his mother to the best VIP suite under his name. And what did he do? He enjoyed everything my money bought while playing the victim of my wealthy arrogance. What a natural-born actor. "Oh, really?" I glanced at him coldly, a mocking smirk playing on my lips. "In that case, fine. I'll call my assistant in a minute and tell him to claw back that $300,000 from the hospital." The moment those words left my mouth, the fake anger on Carter's face froze. He never expected me to play along. Carter panicked, but he quickly forced himself to stay calm and yelled at me. "Aurelia, what do you take me for?" He looked like he was about to burst with rage. "Do you think you can do whatever you want to me just because you have money? I won't buy into your rich girl games." Looking at his hypocritical face, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. "What are you laughing at?" Carter's face flushed bright red, stung by my laughter. Right then, my phone buzzed inside my bag. It was my father. I raised my hand and gestured for Carter to shut up. Carter gritted his teeth, forcing himself to swallow his words. From the other end of the line, my father's helpless voice came through. "Aurelia, I know you've been close with that security guard lately, but you two belong to different worlds. He can't give you a good life. Stop being so stubborn. I've arranged a match for you. He's Damian Sterling, the founder of Sterling Technologies. He's handsome and highly respected. Just listen to me meet him and see how it goes. Okay. In my past life, when I heard this, I had a massive fight with my father. I had screamed that I would marry no one but Carter, even threatening to starve myself, breaking my father's heart. But in this life, I looked at the ungrateful man in front of me with a half smile. An arranged match. Sure, father. Send me the address. I'll be there on time this afternoon. Hearing me agree so easily, my father was thrilled. He quickly said some sweet words and sent the address to my phone. After I hung up, Carter stared at me, his face turning pale and green. Aurelia, have you had enough of this drama? Do you think going on a date with some random guy will make me jealous? You don't have to play hard to get my attention. Carter, I snapped. You've been thinking way too highly of yourself lately. Remember your place. Carter gritted his teeth. Fine, don't regret this. He threw a tantrum, turned around, and stormed out of my house. Watching his back, I smiled with pure disdain. Regret. The only thing I regretted was being blind enough to love a piece of trash like you in my past life. That afternoon, I arrived at the high-end cafe my father had texted me. In my past life, due to Carter's brainwashing, I absolutely despised business marriages. I hadn't even given the Sterling founder a single glance. But this time, when I walked into the reserved lounge and saw the man sitting there, I couldn't help but praise my father's taste. He wore a perfectly tailored dark Italian suit. He was stunning. Miss Vance, nice to meet you. I am Damian Sterling. He stood up politely, offering his hand. His voice was deep and magnetic. Mr. Sterling, the pleasure is mine. I smiled and shook his hand. The date was surprisingly pleasant. Damian was not only incredibly handsome, but he was also elegant, polite, and brilliant. We talked about everything from tech innovation to art collection. We clicked perfectly. Over the next few days, Damian asked me out for various reasons. We went to concerts, visited art galleries, and even went horseback riding at a private club. I hadn't thought about the disgusting name Carter for days until one evening. After a dinner at a Michelin star restaurant, Damian gentlemanly drove me home. It's still early. Would you like to come in for some tea? I stood at the door smiling as I invited him. I'd love to. Damian smiled back, his beautiful eyes sparkling with warmth. I scanned my fingerprint to unlock the door, pushed it open, and was about to invite him in. But as soon as I looked up, I saw Carter sitting comfortably on my living room sofa. Seeing me bring another man home, Carter's face turned incredibly dark. He looked at me, his tone accusing. Aurelia, it's so late. Why are you bringing another man home? I frowned, feeling sickened by his tone. Carter, watch your tongue. I am your employer. Being scolded in front of an outsider, Carter's face flushed bright red instantly. What are you standing there for? I ordered him around like any other servant. Go to the kitchen and brew some black tea for Mr. Sterling. Hearing my words, the resentment in Carter's eyes almost spilled over, but forced by my status, he could only turn and walk toward the kitchen with reluctance. Mr. Sterling, please have a seat. I'll go change into something more comfortable. I turned to Damian and smiled. Sure, Damian nodded, giving me a deep, knowing look. I went upstairs and changed into a set of cozy loungewear. Just as I reached the turn of the stairs on my way down, a loud crash echoed from the living room, followed by Carter's painful scream. I rushed downstairs. I saw Carter clutching his left hand, crouching by the coffee table in pain. Meanwhile, Damian stood nearby, looking completely calm. What happened? Aurelia, he pushed me. Seeing me come down, Carter immediately started playing the victim. I was just trying to serve him tea, but he was jealous that I get to be close to you. He deliberately threw the boiling tea at me. Damian met my gaze, his voice steady. Miss Vance, I didn't push him. He tripped. I looked down at Carter's hand. The so-called burn was barely the size of a fingernail. It didn't even blister. Looking at Carter's pathetic act, I let out a cold laugh. Cut the drama, Carter. It's just a tiny red spot. Why are you whining like a child? Just put a band-aid on it. Hearing me side with an outsider, Carter couldn't hold back his anger anymore. Aurelia Vance. Ignoring his rage, I turned to Damien with an apologetic smile. Mr. Sterling, I'm so sorry. My servant doesn't know his manners. I apologize for the scene. It's getting late. So why don't you head home and get some rest? Let's hang out another day. Damien glanced at the shaking, furious Carter, and a faint smirk appeared on his face. All right, rest well, Aurelia. Good night. After Damien left, only Carter and I remained in the living room. Carter stared at me with red eyes, his voice filled with disbelief and hurt. Aurelia, I feel like you've changed. Looking at his hurt expression, I felt absolutely nothing. Have I? With that, I didn't even look at him again. I turned around and walked upstairs. Over the next few days, he didn't dare to act high and mighty in front of me anymore. Instead, he started clinging to me like cheap gum, trying desperately to show his worth. Every morning before I even woke up, he would prepare breakfast. When I left for work, he would open the car door for me. He even learned a few clumsy French pickup lines to please me. Faced with his groveling behavior, I wasn't touched, nor did I kick him out. I simply enjoyed his service, guilt-free. Occasionally, I would answer Damien's calls right in front of him, or dress up beautifully to go on romantic dates with Damien. Every time this happened, Carter would lower himself even more, trying to win me back. I knew he was terrified. He was terrified of losing me, his ticket to a life of luxury. He was terrified that his dream of marrying into wealth would shatter. And when a person is consumed by fear and anxiety, they easily make mistakes. I was quietly waiting for the day he would show his true, ugly colors. Finally, the opportunity came. These days, my company was preparing for a massive international merger. I worked late for several nights in a row, coming home past midnight. Tonight, I was sitting in my study, double-checking the final financial reports on my computer. There was a soft knock on the door, and Carter walked in carrying a small tray. On the tray was a sleek glass bottle filled with a clear, fragrant oil. Aurelia's still working. Carter walked over and set the tray down. I saw how tired you've been lately. You look pale. I had this custom organic skin serum made for you. Carter looked at me, his eyes filled with warmth and care. It'll help you relax and sleep better. Smelling that familiar, slightly floral scent, my hand holding the pen froze. In my past life, he had looked at me with this exact loving expression, applying this toxic serum to my neck every single night. I had used it for 10 years until my body completely fell apart and I died in agony. I took a deep breath, suppressing the urge to kill him right then and there. I picked up the bottle, slowly bringing it to my neck. Carter stood by, his eyes shining with a hidden, desperate anticipation. Just as the glass was about to touch my skin, I stopped. I slowly lowered the bottle and pushed it right in front of Carter. Aurelia, what's wrong? Carter was stunned. I leaned back in my chair, staring at him. I just remembered a rule in the Vance family. What rule? Carter asked, confused. Any untried product must be tested by a servant first. You apply it. The moment I said this, Carter's face turned pale. Aurelia, what do you mean by that? He looked at me in disbelief. Are you doubting me? Do you think I'd poison you? His eyes turned red instantly, and he cried out in hurt. I might be poor, but my love for you is pure. How can you treat me like some shady criminal? I said nothing. Seeing my cold face, Carter gritted his teeth. Fine, if you don't trust me, I'll show you. He grabbed the bottle, tilted his head, and applied a generous amount to his own wrist. Then he slammed the empty bottle back onto the tray. Are you satisfied now? He stormed out of the study. I sneered. So what if he used it? It was a slow neurotoxin. Applying it once or twice wouldn't do any harm. Once he left, I opened a hidden folder on my computer and pulled up the mansion security cameras. My father had installed these tiny, discreet cameras for my safety when the estate was built. Carter knew nothing about them. On the screen, Carter hadn't left the mansion. He walked downstairs, made sure no one was around, and slipped into the first-floor utility room. On the camera, all the warmth on Carter's face was replaced by a deadly chill. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. As soon as the call connected, he whispered angrily, "The plan has to change." That Aurelia suspects something's wrong with the serum. Though his voice was low, the high-definition microphone in the utility room picked up every single word. The person on the other end said something, making Carter's expression look even more vicious. "I know we can't wait anymore. We need a faster method. Just make sure everything on your end is ready." Hanging up, Carter paced around the room for a bit before walking out, as if nothing had happened. I knew he was finally panicking and getting desperate. I dialed a private investigator's number. I ordered them to dig up everything on Carter. At the next high-profile charity gala, I made sure to arrive arm in arm with Damien. When reporters asked about our relationship, I leaned against Damien's shoulder and announced with a smile, "I've accepted Mr. Sterling's proposal. The date of our engagement party will be announced soon." Damien was slightly surprised, but he played along perfectly, planting a tender kiss on my forehead. Not only that, but I also paid off several major New York gossip outlets. The next morning, the headlines flooded the city. Heiress Aurelia Vance to marry Sterling. Poor guard's billionaire dream shattered. A guard trying to climb the social ladder. Aurelia Vance announces engagement, making Carter Miller the laughingstock of NYC. I expected Carter to confront me after such humiliation, but to my surprise, he held it in. He still showed up at my house every day, acting even more submissive and attentive. It was as if he could swallow any insult just to stay by my side. His behavior only made me more alert. A silent dog bites the hardest. 3 days later, a private investigator sent me the report. The file showed that over the past week, Carter had been meeting with Leo, our family's private chauffeur. Leo's son had piled up massive gambling debts and was being chased by dangerous loan sharks. Carter had offered Leo $5 million to sabotage the ski lift on our upcoming family trip to Aspen and stage an accident. Once I died, Carter would use a forged will to claim my entire estate. But what shocked me the most was the last page of the report. The PI found out that the person pulling the strings behind Carter was actually someone inside my own family. However, the mastermind was extremely cautious, and the PI couldn't pin down their exact identity yet. Cold sweat soaked my back as I read the report. It turned out that the person who wanted me dead wasn't just Carter, but also a dear relative of mine. I forced myself to calm down. Since I couldn't find the mastermind, I had to lure them out. Leaning back in my chair, a brilliant plan took shape in my mind. Since they wanted me dead so badly, fine, I would give them exactly what they wanted and die once. The snow was falling heavily over the slopes of Aspen. I sat in the private ski lodge with Damien, my father, and a handful of trusted security personnel. Damien set a cup of hot chocolate in front of me, his knuckles brushing against mine for a fleeting warm second. He sat on the armrest of the velvet armchair, looking down at the investigative dossier spread across the marble coffee table. "Your father's younger brother, Thomas Vance," Damien murmured, his dark eyes sharpening like polished obsidian. "For the last 5 years, he's lost over $200 million in bad real estate ventures. Your father was preparing to audit the family trust next month. If Thomas didn't take you out and install a puppet, he was heading straight to federal prison for grand embezzlement. And Carter was his chosen attack dog," I said, swirling the hot chocolate. "Thomas promised him $50 million a seat on the board and the Vance name. Carter thought he was playing the mastermind, but he was just Thomas's disposable pawn." Damien leaned down, his face inches from mine, his deep voice carrying a lethal protective calm. "How do you want to play it, Aurelia?" "I have 3 security teams ready. We can have Carter and Thomas in federal holding by midnight." "No," I replied, looking up into his eyes with a cold, slow smile. "Arresting them now is too clean. They'll hire expensive lawyers, claim miscommunication, and drag it through court for years. I want them to step onto the stage they built, take their bow, and realize the floor beneath their feet is gone." Damien chuckled softly, a low, magnetic vibration in his chest. "You really are magnificent when you're ruthless." "What's the plan?" We stage the accident tomorrow night on the Black Diamond Run, I said. Leo, our family chauffeur, has already confessed to me. I paid off his son's gambling debts this morning and placed his entire family under private security protection. He handed over the duplicate key Carter gave him along with the audio recordings of Carter instructing him to tamper with the ski lift emergency brake. Damien asked a customized ski lift car equipped with remote telemetry filled with weighted crash test dummies, I said, setting the hot chocolate down with a sharp clink. The moment it goes over the ridge into the ravine, I officially cease to exist in the eyes of New York. The night of the accident was thick with snow and howling wind. At 11:45 p.m., emergency dispatch scanners across the city erupted with frantic alerts. Private ski lift car carrying Vance Group heiress Aurelia. Vance suffers catastrophic brake failure on Black Diamond Run, plunges 200 feet into the ravine. By 2 a.m., the mountain rescue team had recovered the crushed, twisted metal of the lift car. Due to the heavy snow and difficult terrain, no bodies were immediately recovered, but blood samples matching my type were found on the wreckage. At 6 a.m., the front pages of every newspaper and financial site in America broke the headline: Tragedy in High Society. Billionaire heiress Aurelia Vance presumed dead in horrific ski lift plunge. Vance conglomerate in shock as sole heiress dies weeks before billion-dollar merger. Inside, Damien's secure penthouse. I sat on the sofa in a comfortable silk robe, watching the news ticker roll across the 60-inch screen. On the live broadcast outside the Vance estate in Westchester, Carter Miller was standing before a wall of flashing cameras. He wore a rumpled black suit, his eyes red and swollen, sobbing hysterically as reporters thrust microphones into his face. My life, Carter wailed into the cameras, clutching a framed photo of me against his chest. We were supposed to announce our wedding. I don't care about the Vance fortune. I just want my Aurelia back. God, take me instead. Watching his performance, I took a slow sip of orange juice, feeling an exhilarating rush of pure, venomous satisfaction. An Oscar-worthy performance, Damien remarked, walking into the living room with a freshly printed legal dispatch. Thomas Vance just filed an emergency petition with the New York probate court to unseal Aurelia. Vance's last will and testament witnessed by private notary Frank Thorne and dated 2 weeks ago. And what does my supposed will say? I asked, raising an eyebrow. It designates Carter Miller as the sole executor and trustee of your 60% voting shares in the Vance conglomerate, alongside an immediate cash distribution of $400 million to his personal trust. Damien sat beside me, his hand resting gently over mine on the sofa. The memorial service and estate division are scheduled for tomorrow evening at the Vance Grand Ballroom, Damien said, his eyes glittering with dark anticipation. Thomas and Carter have invited the entire Manhattan elite, including 3 city council members and 4 federal judges, to witness the solemn transition of legacy. Perfect, I murmured, leaning against Damien's shoulder. Let them invite the whole world. It'll make the funeral of their lives so much more entertaining. The night of the memorial, the Vance Manor in Westchester was draped in black velvet and white lilies. Over 400 high society guests, hedge fund managers, foreign ambassadors, and socialites filled the grand ballroom, sipping champagne in hushed, solemn tones. At the front of the hall stood a massive, gilded portrait of me, flanked by towering arrangements of white orchids. Beside the portrait, Carter Miller stood tall, dressed in a custom-tailored Tom Ford tuxedo that cost at least $20,000. The meek, subservient security guard who had pretended to be humble for months was completely gone. In his place was an arrogant, swaggering upstart, holding a glass of vintage crystal, laughing softly with 4 striking women surrounding him. I recognized all 4 of them from my previous life. There was Chloe, the crooked dermatologist who had synthesized the tasteless chronic neurotoxin he applied in my skin serum. Beatrice, the corrupt notary who had forged my legal signatures. Vanessa, the fake high society influencer who laundered his stolen cash through offshore art auctions. And Clara, his childhood sweetheart from his hometown, whom he had kept hidden in a luxury Manhattan condo while pretending to be devoted only to me. Carter, darling, Clara purred, running her manicured fingers down his satin lapel. You really pulled it off. Look at this house. Look at these chandeliers. Is all of this really ours now? Every single brick baby, Carter sneered, taking a sip of his champagne. That stupid Aurelia thought she was so clever with her business degree and her sterling fiancé. She applied that neurotoxin serum for months without suspecting a thing. When that didn't kill her fast enough, one sabotaged ski lift solved the problem in 10 seconds. "What about that Sterling guy?" Chloe asked, giggling into her glass. "He looked like he was ready to kill you at the hospital." "Damian Sterling is just a pampered tech boy," Carter laughed, wrapping his arm around Clara's waist. "Once the probate judge signs off on the 40% cash release tonight, Thomas Vance takes the CEO seat and I get $300 million in liquid bonds. We fly to Monaco on the private jet tomorrow morning." Thomas Vance, my uncle, walked over, holding a leather folder, smiling with smug, greasy satisfaction. "The probate magistrate has arrived," Carter Thomas whispered. "The board members are seated. Let's finish the reading and secure the signatures before the media starts asking questions about the offshore filings." "Let's do it," Carter grinned, stepping up to the marble podium beneath my giant portrait. Carter tapped his crystal glass with a silver pen, and the chatter in the ballroom died down into respectful silence. "Distinguished guests, family and friends," Carter began, his voice laced with practiced theatrical sorrow. "We gather tonight with broken hearts to honor the memory of the most radiant soul New York has ever known. My beloved Aurelia." Several elderly socialites in the front row dabbed their eyes with lace handkerchiefs. Aurelia knew the dangers of this world. Carter continued, holding up the forged leather document. "Before her tragic accident, she entrusted me with her greatest mission to protect the Vance legacy and ensure that her wealth was distributed according to her true wishes. In this signed testament, she named me as her sole trustee." "I don't remember signing that piece of trash, Carter." A crisp, cold, melodic voice cut through the cavernous hall like a diamond slicing glass. The heavy, soundproof double doors at the back of the ballroom swung wide open. The crystal chandeliers overhead seemed to tremble as the cold evening breeze swept through the entrance. The entire room turned around in unison. A collective, ear-splitting gasp shook the ballroom. Glasses slipped from frozen fingers, shattering onto the polished marble. Women screamed, stumbling backward, while board members jumped out of their seats as if they had seen the devil himself rise from the floorboards. I walked down the central red carpet. I wore an exquisite blood-red haute couture gown, my long dark hair cascading over my shoulders in glossy waves, my diamonds blazing with dazzling brilliance under the lights. My heels clicked against the stone floor with a slow, rhythmic, terrifying cadence. Beside me walked Damian Sterling, towering and magnificent in an obsidian tuxedo, flanked by 12 armed federal agents from the Department of Justice and the lead investigator of the Manhattan District Attorney's Homicide Division. Behind us walked my father, Arthur Vance, completely healthy, his eyes burning with lethal sovereign fury. Carter's face went from smug triumph to the putrid, curdled gray of a rotting corpse within 3 seconds. The crystal glass in his hand shattered, spilling vintage champagne and blood across his expensive white shirt. His jaw dropped so low it looked dislocated, his eyes bulging as if they were about to pop out of their sockets. Aurelia Carter stammered, his voice cracking into a high-pitched, inhuman shriek. "You're dead." Your ski lift fell into the ravine. The car was crushed. "Disappointed to see me alive, Carter?" I smiled, stopping at the foot of the podium, looking up at him with unadulterated disdain. Thomas Vance staggered back against the floral arrangements, knocking over 3 vases of white orchids. "Arthur, Aurelia, this is impossible." The police confirmed the fatality report. The police were executing a federal sting operation. Thomas, my father, boomed his voice, echoing off the high vaulted ceiling to catch the treasonous hyenas attempting to devour my family from within. "No, this is a trick," Carter screamed, panicking completely, pointing a shaking finger at me. "She's an imposter. Security, shoot her. She's trying to steal the estate." Not a single security guard moved. Every guard standing in the ballroom was part of the elite private security firm owned by the Sterling Group. Damian took a single, elegant step forward, pulled a remote control from his breast pocket, and pressed the center button. The massive projection screens hanging on either side of my portrait flickered to life. The entire ballroom went dead silent. The screen split into 4 crystal-clear 4K panels. Panel 1, the high-definition audio and video from the mansion's first-floor utility room, showing Carter whispering into his phone. The plan has to change that Aurelia suspects the serum. We need a faster method. Make sure everything is ready. Panel 2, security footage from the garage 3 nights before the trip, showing Carter handing a $5 million offshore check to Leo, whispering tamper with the ski lift emergency brake. Make sure she goes over the ridge. Panel 3, the chemical analysis report from the FBI forensics lab showing the exact molecular composition of the neurotoxin found in the skin serum Carter provided, signed by Dr. Chloe Hayes. Panel 4, the bank routing records showing a $50 million wire transfer from Thomas Vance's Cayman Island shell company directly to Carter Miller's Swiss-numbered account. The audio of their conversation from 5 minutes ago blasted through the ballroom's state-of-the-art sound system. That stupid Aurelia thought she was so clever she applied that neurotoxin serum for months. One sabotage ski lift solved the problem in 10 seconds. The guests erupted into absolute pandemonium. Socialites screamed in horror, pointing at Carter and his 4 mistresses. Reputable board members backed away from Thomas Vance as if he were covered in the plague. "Turn it off. Turn it off," Thomas wailed, collapsing to his knees, clutching his chest. Carter, realizing he was completely trapped, let out a psychotic roar, grabbed a heavy silver candle holder from the podium, and lunged directly toward me. "If I'm going down, you're coming with me, you." Before he could take 2 steps, Damien moved with the speed of a striking viper. Damien stepped into Carter's guard, caught his wrist with an iron grip, and twisted it downward with a sharp, sickening crack. Carter shrieked in agony as his arm broke. Damien delivered a brutal, merciless kick to Carter's knee, forcing him to slam face first onto the marble floor, pinning him under the polished heel of his dress shoe. "Don't you dare look at my fiancé with your filthy eyes," Damien whispered, his voice ice cold. Lead investigator Reynolds stepped forward, pulling out an iron chain of warrants. Carter Miller, Thomas Vance, Chloe Hayes, Beatrice Stone, Vanessa Miller, and Clara Bennett Reynolds declared by order of the Supreme Court of New York, you are all placed under immediate arrest for attempted murder in the first degree, conspiracy to commit assassination, grand embezzlement, fraudulent alteration of legal instruments, and corporate treason. Federal agents swarmed the stage. Handcuffs clicked around the wrists of the 4 mistresses, who were weeping, screaming, and clawing at each other, trying desperately to shift the blame onto Carter. "It was Carter. He forced me to make the neurotoxin," Chloe shrieked. "He promised me $5 million. I was just the notary," Beatrice wailed. Carter lay pinned beneath Damien's boot, spitting blood and teeth onto the marble, staring up at me with eyes filled with venomous, defeated madness. "Aurelia, Aurelia, please," Carter begged, his voice breaking into a ragged, pathetic whine. "I loved you for 10 years. I washed your feet. I took care of you. You can't let them send me to prison." I slowly walked over, knelt down, and looked into his bloodshot eyes. "You washed my feet to distract me. While your poison dissolved in my serum," I whispered, my voice carrying the freezing chill of 2 lifetimes. "You gave me 10 years of slow agony in the past, Carter. In this life, you will spend the next 40. Years rotting in a concrete cell, watching from the prison news as I build an empire you could never even dream of." I stood up, stepping over his trembling hand. "Take this trash away," I told the marshals. The agents dragged Carter and his accomplices down the center aisle of the ballroom, their frantic screams and desperate sobs fading into the distance as the grand double doors closed firmly behind them. 1 year later, the Grand Plaza Hotel in Manhattan was illuminated by thousands of fairy lights and white roses. The front page of the Wall Street Journal featured a striking full-page photograph. The Union of Titans. Aurelia Vance and Damien Sterling tie the knot in historic $50 billion alliance. I stood before the full-length mirror in the bridal suite, dressed in an exquisite Vera Wang gown, adorned with 30,000 hand-stitched Swarovski crystals. Behind me, the door opened softly. Damien walked in wearing an immaculate white tuxedo, his eyes soft with a reverence and warmth that made my heart flutter. He walked over, wrapping his arms gently around my waist, resting his chin on my shoulder, looking at our reflection in the glass. "Are you nervous, Mrs. Sterling?" he whispered, planting a soft kiss on the crook of my neck. I looked at the radiant, healthy, untouchable woman staring back at me in the mirror. A woman who had broken through the shackles of death, crushed every viper in her path, and reclaimed her throne. I turned in his embrace, wrapped my arms around his neck, and smiled. A brilliant, genuine smile that held the warmth of 1,000 suns. "Not at all, Mr. Sterling," I whispered, meeting his lips with mine. "My life is just beginning."